any schemes that come forward in places like the Diglis redevelopment area, obviously near the riverbank, obviously heat source there, the Shrub Hill development, redevelopment of a lot of housing and so on there. There's going to be a lot of scope for getting in quite early from a planning point of view and planning the heat network. So I just want you, if you can, to reassure us that those conversations are happening and that you're going to get markers put down within the planning department in terms of making sure that these things will be considered at the very early stages of pre-app and all the rest of it. So there's two questions. One was about the why there was no bids, and the second one is just to reassure us that you are keep pushing the development side of planning.
Chair, if I'll pick up the first bit first of all. So we were working to the government's timetable on delivery of the project, which meant that we went out to market for a consultant for our detailed project development over the summer. I think with 4 or 5 weeks we put on the return of bids. There's a lot of work around at the moment for consultants, and it was the holiday season, and those two things probably conspired to them not putting the bid in. The team have actually done quite a lot of engagement with potential consultants since then, and we've got a good number that say actually they are interested. It was just really the timing and the time of year, and a couple of queries that they didn't have the opportunity really to come back on. So we've now got an extension to the end of next year to complete the project. So it's out to procurement again, which closes on the 15th of December, and we'll be assessing, looking to award in the new year. And we're very confident we will get somebody for that. So that's the first part. I mean, I would give a general answer to the second part, that we are engaging closely with the planning department. There are requirements on developers to connect to existing heat networks if available. So actually, if we do get this moving along the banks of the River Severn, that might be a really good sort of anchor development there. But we're talking closely with the planners. They're part of the team and our regular meetings around sustainability, so that point won't be lost.
So I've got Councillor Cookson, please, and Councillor Cooper.
Really pleased. This isn't really a question, actually. It's an observation. I'm just really pleased to see in the report it emphasising the approval that we gave when we were looking at comators about the importance of going electric and the view of this committee, and it's nice to see that reflected in the report. I also wanted to express our thanks on behalf of, I think, all of the committee to the officers for the amount of work they've put in at very short notice to do some of these bids, to be able to enable us to, hopefully, we don't know the outcomes, but access some resources. It's they don't give you long to turn around, and they have put these reports in. They've hopefully both for the swimming pool and for the cremators. And I mean, I know from speaking to them, it's not even just the process of downloading it, filling it in. It's actually trying to get it physically in. And I think we really need to thank them and hope that they've got a few less grey hairs from that process. I just wanted to say thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's really important to say. Actually, it's the process that we have to go through now to bid for this kind of money. It's a real shame we don't get a pot where we can choose to spend it wisely ourselves. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the sustainability team for this report. It's really detailed. I just have one quick technical question around 7.6, 7.7. I just wondered if that included grey fleet, please. Thank you.
Excuse me, sorry, I'm just finding 7.6, 7.7. No, not as of yet, actually. So this area of the report looks at converting our fleet to zero-emission vehicles. So the work that we've had done so far from the Energy Saving Trust looked at our own fleet particularly, didn't look at grey fleet where obviously employees are using their own vehicles. That is something that we could look at doing in the future. We are looking at how we can support employees to purchase electric vehicles. So that's an active project for the moment. And yes, in terms of other active travel initiatives, I would hope that the bike share scheme will be well used by our own staff, and obviously we'll be talking to the provider, the operator, about how we can incentivise. We want our own staff obviously to be showcasing the use of that bike share scheme around the city. So hopefully we can reduce the use of vehicles and encourage the use of active travel. I would say actually mileage generally from grey fleet is low. Yeah, and particularly post-COVID, the use of Teams has really supported reducing that.
Do I have any other questions or comments? No? Okay, well, I'd like to thank officers for this report, and the recommendation that we need to vote through is that the initial work to refresh the sustainability strategy 2020-30 agreed in 2020 was scheduled for a refresh every 3 years, updates on progress delivering the Sustainability Action Plan and Biodiversity Action Programme. Okay, so we're basically noting the content of the report. We are. Excellent, thank you. Fab. Right. What's next? Biodiversity Ward Action Plans. Sandra, this is agenda item 9.
Left slide. Left.
Don't cough, Sandra. Don't cough.
No, we said it.
Ruth alluded, this is the third report that we've got on biodiversity. This features around operational delivery and underpins quite a lot of the strategic work that Ruth has been undertaking over the last few months. So I just want to take you through the ward plan update. As mentioned, recent reports of the State of Nature report has just been published, and it that since 1970, more than half of our flowering plants in the UK have lost from areas where they used to thrive, and there's been a significant decline in insects, including our pollinators such as bees, hoverflies and moths, decreasing to approximately 18%. As mentioned earlier, the introduction of the Environment Act biodiversity, so it's quite key that the operational delivery is working alongside the strategic element. We have seen some real with trust and also working very closely with Worcester Environmental Group and the Worcestershire Wildlife Trust. So over the last couple of years, we've seen some extensive wildflower trials that have been undertaken on our roundabouts, roadside verges, parks and some of our green spaces. And I think we can also, one of the excellent examples of this, with great emphasis of assistance of WEG, has been around the verge on Dugdale Drive and the Warden Villages. And when it was surveyed by WEG in 2020, there were over 30 different species present, so that would really enhance the area. I'm going to take you through some of the progress to date, and this is quite wide-ranging across a lot of the land that we're responsible for. I think as David mentioned earlier around the specific conservation sites, our officers have been quite significant work in ensuring that we're continuing increasing the protection and the preservation and the importance to prevent the damage and development in those areas. Woodland is something that we've talked about earlier on the Ash Dieback, and that is something that we're very keen to start mapping across the city to look at the extent, and we'll be looking at bringing a future plan to committee and looking at how we can minimise the risk to biodiversity and look at the risk across the Ash Dieback over the 70% that I think is around Worcester currently being mapped. The roadside verges and roundabouts is quite a good piece of work that we've just started undertaking, and we've seen this around SMG, Tollerdown Road and Hastings Drive. And as the diagram shows, we're looking at different bits across from the road, and dependent on the size of the verges, we're looking at how we can develop that and ensure that we are looking at the whole area as a biodiversity thriving element. And part of that planned work is around a full cut every 4 years, which avoids any of that nettle and scrub encroachment, which causes issues on the highway. Again, and this has been, I think, very critical to our members, who have been quite good at supporting and informing areas where we need to be looking at around our grass meadows and our native flower patches and the wildflower seeded areas. So we did some successful trials 2020-21, and we've now looked at expanding this with the successful cut and collect method that was supported via the Environment Committee. And this is in turn increasing the biodiversity around those rich areas that we've been working on. Not to go through in too much detail, but in Appendix 2, you can see the small trials of the wildflower programmes that we've done in Year 1 and also Year 2 locations. And whilst it is in early stages of developing more across the city, we are also looking at seeing some of the more grass meadows increased, and we'll continue to work closely with elected members to develop new sites moving forward. We think this is quite crucial and key within the operational services. We've also got 4 premier parks which hold green flag status, and much around the supportment of a We've also been awarded for the second time running green flag status at Aswood Cemetery, and that was very much pivotal on getting that award around the biodiversity enhancements that Doug and the team have done over at Aswood. It's a place of quiet reflection and gives comfort to the bereaved, but also that we're sensitively managing and conserving the ecology in that area, and that was cited within the award. The reasons why that was given that status and received it for the second time running this year. So further plans within bereavement services are to look at now St John's Cemetery, and we are hoping to submit an award for green flag in the next round next year, looking at some of the enhancements that we're currently undertaking. Mecco Memorial Nature Park was an area that received capital funding and also support within the Environment Committee, and this has seen improvements around the resurfacing of the public right-of-way and the allotments access track, but it's also a quiet place to look at and reflect victims of the bombing of the Mecco works. And over the next couple of months, we're also going to be looking at developing the area of wildflowers that will be seeded, that will be also in conjunction with the community orchard across the northern boundary, again, which will be, I think, quite a key area enhancing the biodiversity. And finally, it would be remiss of me to not mention some of the work that we've been doing alongside in the allotments with some of the tenants. They've got up to 20% of their plot that they can utilise for biodiversity, and again, WEG has been very instrumental in supporting the allotment officer and the tenants in actively encouraging composting, use of water butts, and also looking at creating insect bug hotels on some of the allotment sites. This is something that we will want to take forward. And also we're looking at some of the areas to grow wild and have planted some wildflower seeds across the areas of all the sites. So I think the next steps for us is, obviously we've got quite a lot of positive work that's already undertaken, but we've got to now look at embedding those management practices and supporting biodiversity across the city, but also that will enhance the environmental sustainability action plans that we spoke about earlier, and that we ensure that our natural environment and the native species are allowed to flourish. So there'll be continuous development, ongoing training with the workforce that we've already started this year around emphasising the importance of the work that they're doing. Some of the work that we've previously done have been tried and tested, and it's about continuing to develop that workforce and also ensure that we're providing that information out in the education that will maximise success. Further work is going to be undertaken in collaboration with our stakeholders and looking at the management of our council-owned assets. And I think we've heard a lot of the work that we'll need to do around biodiversity. And I think this will be a good key thing for city services from an operational point of view, ensuring that it's coherent and holistic approach to sustainability. And will complement the duties that are coming from the Environment Act in 2021. For you to take any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Sandra. I think the next step paragraph is particularly interesting as well, because you know, expanding it to for the management, and obviously the communication is absolutely key to the success of this whole project. Have I got any questions, please? Okay, if I go Councillor Stephen Jagger, then to Sarah, if that's all right.
Yeah, it looks really good. I'm just wondering about one thing on Appendix 2. It lists the grass meadows, wildflower meadows and so on. In Warner Parish North, it's got Parsonage Way, Warndon Way, roundabout. In the text to the right, I think it's talking about the verge. I think it's the grass that's on Parsonage Way.
Yes.
But there is a bit of land, I think, is owned by the City Council, which is the land that's between Parsonage Way and the motorway. It's a bit of farmland there, which I think we rent out to a farmer. That is, I think it's a special wildlife site, and it is grassland. So I'm just wondering whether that should also be in this report as well, because that does need to be under your watchful eye, particularly if you've got an ecologist or a biodiversity person in your team in the future, and make sure they're managing correctly. So it might just be it's been labelled up incorrectly. It might be that you need an extra little box there for that bit of land as well.
Yeah, noted, I'll make sure that's
Good.
sorted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jagger.
Thank you, Chair. Please forgive me for bringing this issue back up again at the ASH Diet. As you can imagine, I've been getting a lot of questions from residents about this particular issue. So something else that I thought about when you were, and it's based on my understanding on the issue, which I'm sure you will understand a lot more. But as I understand it, one of the, it's not just the environmental impact, but it could be if a tree's affected by ash dieback, it could potentially present a risk to a person if it might fall or if it could cause a danger. And I'm aware that there is going to be a plan coming in January, but I wonder, and whether this is in your remit or not, how much of a risk there is, if we know how many dangerous trees there are. And secondly, if somebody is injured by a tree that is affected, are we potentially vulnerable to lawsuits? And would we have to pay for the removal of dangerous trees, and where would that money come from?
Yeah. At the moment, we have a tree officer, Harry, who is currently undertaking an audit across the whole of the city of all our trees, and in particular of the ash, and also is looking at the grading, which is going to form part of the strategy and the action plan. We're just not quite there to present to members, but we are doing the work behind the scenes. And any dangerous trees, irrespective of whether it's ash or not, we have a tree team that's in-house that would respond to that. And Harry's remit is around the inspection regime of looking at trees and the health of trees and and whether they pose a danger to members of the public. If so, we would remove that tree within the in-house service that we've got. I'm not sure about
Yeah, in respect of the second point, Councillor Jagger, if something unfortunate was to occur and it was a tree of ours on our land, then there would be an investigation of some sort, and potentially the council may be liable, depending on what the condition of that tree was or whether we'd inspected it recently. It's very much a case-by-case basis, but potentially if it was our tree on our land, then yes.
So to clarify, so if the ash dye problem becomes so bad in however many trees, we would have to spend money on it by removing it if it becomes danger, whether we budget for that or not. Is that correct?
So our tree strategy, our general tree strategy and our statutory requirement focuses our resource on where those trees are most dangerous. So we have a statutory duty to remove our trees on our land that present a health and safety risk. And as Sandra says, whether that's ash or poplar or some other breed. As part of the ash dieback strategy that we'll bring back in either January or March, we'll set out A, the extent of the issue, B, our approach to dealing with it, and it's likely that will come with a requirement for some level of capital investment. But again, the strategy will be based upon which of those ash trees present more risk than others.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We've got Councillor De Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. I just wondered if you wanted to consider an area of land that isn't council land, but I'm talking about Woodmancote, which is being developed, reclaimed for the community, working with Worcestershire Wildlife Trust, and we're hoping to also go partnership with NatNets to make a path through the big overgrown section. We're currently planting wildflowers in the bit that's been cleared. And it's close enough to other areas of green space that there might be some cross-pollination. It's also an area of incredible biodiversity that's grown up over those 16 years where it's been derelict. A lot of birds and things like that. Is that something that you want to keep a track of or not?
Yes, certainly. Since Matt Bayliss has left the council, Doug Henderson is going to take on the role from a conservation point of view, and we're quite keen to re-engage with Paul Snooks in WEG and work quite closely with some of the volunteers that I think we've keen to do. So I can't promise, but I think, yes, please, if you've got any areas, we would like to look at how we can work in partnership.
So I'm already, there are City Council, Nathan Gunnell, he's been coming along on an occasional basis to just like be involved in what we're doing, and it's a community project at the moment as well, but the land is owned by Sanctuary.
Thank you. Do I have any other questions or comments? No? Okay, great. So we are noting the content of this report and progress made to date. So this is the Biodiversity Ward Plans Update. Is everyone happy to note the contents? Show of hands. Lovely, thank you. Great, thank you very much, Sandra. Okay, so now we're agenda item 10. Oh, Shane.
Oh, thank you, Chair, for that introduction. This is the point of the cycle where we start to think about the budget for the coming year, and obviously some of the things we've been talking about this evening, and we'll talk about in subsequent committees, have financial implications, so we need to consider how they can be brought into the budget considerations. So the process is, for those who are new to it, that we start here at committee level to start thinking about, well, how do we want to see our budgets changing? And remember, bearing in mind the overall context, this is more about shifting resources to priorities as opposed to adding in additional funding, and looking to see how more efficient we can be in the use of the resources that we've got. So the report sort of sets out what budget lines fall to this committee, and it's worth, when you get the moment, to have a look at appendix, see that there's a significant amount of spend that falls within Environment Committee. Upwards of £10 million of the council's £26 million budget falls here, and you know, £8 million of the £13 million income falls here as well. So in that sense, you know, there's a lot of return for the spend in terms of this department. So that's worth bearing in mind in terms of making decisions about that. Over the course of this year, and working hard to identify potential savings or efficiencies in the way that we're doing things. The table on page 56 under paragraph 3.4 shows the savings which have been achieved so far for this year for this committee, a total of 361,000, so a significant amount of contribution there. Just a couple of the ones that, you know, they're itemised below that table, but a couple of ones just to pick up. The savings in non-statutory services include a new approach to managing gas consumption at the crematorium. Originally, that was expected to save around about £80,000 a year. It's looking more like 40 at the moment, but we're continuing to work on that, and that might come through. And the other significant one, parking enforcement, the new arrangement with the county is in fact a new arrangement. What it's revisiting is the existing arrangement and re-looking at that. Initially, we thought that would bring a benefit of about 140,000. It may not. That negotiation is still taking place with the county, so we need to work out exactly how much that contributes. But certainly there will be an improvement in respect of that. So those are the main sort of revenue savings that we've done so far. In terms of the capital, the appendices 2 and 3 just show the capital programme where we are at the moment and the range of activities which fall within the across the broader capital programme. So if there's any areas where members are interested in that and want to know more about it and what projects are happening within the remit of the committee, then by all means get in touch with me or contact Mark Baldwin, and we'll be happy to provide you with more information as we move through to the next committee and further discussions. And then the final appendix just shows earmarked reserves which fall to this committee. So these are the ones which have previously been agreed through Policy and Resources and Council, and where this committee has the remit for spending against those particular reserves. Now, we will be going through the overall reserves in meetings over the next couple of weeks to understand what's no longer required, what might be done differently, what reserves we can free up. And then when we come to the meetings in January, we'll be able to say what the totality of resources we potentially could have to commit from reserves. The one that we've seen this evening was for the Gould programme, so it's only 4,700. That will go into the discussion so that when we come to February's Policy and Resources Committee, that's when the decision will be made to release that funding and where that's going to be funded from reserves. Okay, so that's the process, how it works. So in February, we'll have a more detailed discussion about any areas that you want to think about changing or bringing into the budget. They'll go through to Policy and Resources for decision in February the 9th, I think it is, and then on to Council later in the month for final sign-off. So any questions? It's not really, we don't really have a lot of debate at this stage. It's more about information for yourselves. So come back to me by all means with any questions, ideas or thoughts you want to know about in more detail between now and the next committee in January. Happy to talk through those.
Thank you. Has anyone got any questions or comments? Councillor Bissett?
Should there be money allocated to paying whatever part of the Ash Dieback programme we have to finance?
Through you, Chair, as Lloyd has suggested, there are certainly going to be financial implications there. Until we understand what those look like, it's difficult at this point to say how we would finance that or what approach we would take. Yeah, some of it may be capitalised, in which case we can look to capital resources or borrowing, you know, other means by which we might fund that. Some of it might come through government funding if they recognise there is a wider programme. So until we've got some clarity, all right then, until we've got clarity about that, it's difficult to say how we're going to finance it. But clearly, you know, we're conscious that there will be financial implications, and we will bring that back as part of that detailed report in terms of how we're going to address it. Okay.
And I suppose if any councillors have any ideas at all, just email us. Yeah, chair, vice chair, and we'll take it to our meetings with officers. Okay, so shall we? I think Marjorie will be all right.
answer them this evening. We can come back. Answer them this evening. We can come back with written responses.
Gosh, okay. That was speedy. Do I have any questions for anyone, please? Councillor Sarah.
I didn't have that report in my pack, so I don't know how to note it.
Was this one of the supplement reports, Margaret? It came through yesterday. Yeah. It came through by emails. Is it because Councillor Sarah is a substitute? Right. Yeah. Okay. Do I have any questions, please? No? Everyone happy? Great. Gosh. Okay. So the recommendation here is that we note the Q2 performance for 23-24. Everyone happy to note? Lovely. Thank you. And then we've got another supplement, haven't we? So you may not have this one either, Councillor. So, oh, you have? Okay, right. This is for the development of Worcester City Air Quality Plan, and that's you, Lloyd?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Again, I won't spend too long on it, Chair. It's a fairly short report. But it presents or introduces members to the Worcester City Air Quality Action Plan work. This won't come. This committee is not a stranger to air quality. It's previously overseen the task and finish group work on air quality. You've recently received a report on where the automatic air quality analyzers will go, and recommended some funding on. And I'd overlooked the fact that within the performance report, this committee has oversight of the Air Quality Action Plan work. But one of the purposes of bringing this report to committee this evening is that over the last few years, Licensing and Environmental Health Committee have received the bulk of air quality reports, because constitutionally they're the committee that have sort of constitutional oversight of it. But because the development of an air quality action plan is not just a technical matter, but it's a policy matter as well, there will be investment decisions, there'll be strategic decisions need to be taken, then this report will need to receive reports on the air quality action plan as well. So we'll work with Democratic Services to make sure that Licensing and Environmental Health Committee meetings fall just before Environment Committee meetings, and then they can make recommendations onto yourselves for decision. Within the report, we've just reminded members that we declared an all-city air quality management area back in 2019, and then we were under a statutory requirement to develop an air quality action plan within a reasonable timescale. COVID came along. Officers from WRS and Mark Cox, who was here earlier, actually leads the air quality team, were pulled off onto COVID response work. There was also a piece of work around traffic apportionment to understand the impact that different types of traffic was having on air quality. That had to be stalled because we all started to work from home and there was less traffic. So basically the work around developing the action plan had to be delayed. It's been delayed to an extent where earlier this year DEFRA wrote to us and warned us about where we were in the process and set us a date to comply, along with a sort of a timeline for compliance. And unfortunately, due to an administrative oversight, we as a council weren't made aware. We were made aware later in the year when a follow-up correspondence was received from DEFRA. By that time, the work of the Air Quality Task and Finish Group, which includes members from, when I say members, officers from the County Council, the City Council and WRS, we had developed a proposed timeline for submitting our action plan, and that is December of next year. What we then had to do, and we sought some political cover from group leaders, was to go to DEFRA and say, look, we understand where your timeline is. We're not going to be able to practically achieve that. Here's our proposed timeline. It means that we are looking to submit formally in December of next year. Can you grant us a deferral in order to do that? And thankfully, DEFRA have come back to us and confirmed that the deferral is in place. And we now, as a council, have to submit that air quality action plan by December of next year. And there's lots of work going on behind the scenes around that. And this committee will receive future reports in order to approve the document at various different stages. The only final point to land on, Chair, is that in previous years, the responsibility for developing and submitting an air quality action plan is rested purely with the District Council. The Environment Act, which we discussed a little earlier, that now firmly places a joint responsibility on not only the City Council, but the County Council as well. So for us to be able to submit a robust air quality action plan that's going to be accepted by DEFRA, we will need the County Council to work with us, and in particular as the sort of highway network authority to do its fair share in terms of what measures will end up in the action plan. So happy to stop. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Lloyd. I think it's a good thing that it's not just us, because there are so many things we're not in control of. Have we got any questions, please? Councillor Sarah.
I don't know if any other, it's a general question really. I do get reports from some of my residents that they think that they are suffering air quality health reactions in areas of the city that do not record poor air quality. They do suffer from standing traffic and queuing traffic, but the space is sufficiently open for it not to qualify for that, you know, quite restrictive. Is there any work on this going on? I mean, is this a thing, or are they wrong?
I'm not best placed to answer that question. That's more sort of a question for medics. There's obviously a body of research that now links poor air quality to poor health, particularly those individuals who have underlying cardiorespiratory issues. The sort of air quality levels we get in Worcester City, yes, we're breaching across several areas of the city, several hotspot locations, but we don't get the big peaks that you will find in some of the bigger cities. That's not to sort of downplay the issue that we've got, but we've not got the sort of the big episodes that really trigger some acute issues. You know, like I said, the body of research is growing, but being able to offer an opinion on causality is impossible.
But we do have new air quality monitors coming in, which will measure different things and be more widespread across the city.
Yeah, we have 10 air quality monitors that will come online at some stage next year, and a report goes to Licensing and Environmental Health Committee in December that talks about those locations and the rationale behind it. And again, they are mobile monitors, so we will need to keep them up in the locations proposed for some time, otherwise there's no point in doing it. But at some stage they will be able to be moved around the city if there's a need to do it.
So I think that's really my point. So at the moment, what would be tracked, what would be recorded would not be of consequence. But if residents start to report health issues, is that going to lower the bar? And maybe you can't answer the question, but is this something we need to think about for the future? Is the bar of acceptable air quality going to be calibrated or take account of health issues that get reported by residents?
Sorry, councillors, if I didn't make myself clear. So the air quality limits that are currently set nationally, they are based on epidemiological information about how it impacts health. So that's already in place.
Just wanted to pick up the point about the cooperative work that will be needed between the City Council and the County Council on air quality management and creating a plan and then doing something about it. Could you just give a bit more information about how that work is going to happen? Is it already started, and who will be responsible at the County Council level for doing that work?
Yeah, that work has already started. So there's a Worcester City Air Quality Action Plan working group, basically. So I'm the senior lead officer from this council. A colleague who's at a very similar level to me at county is also the sort of lead from a county point of view. And on that group, you have officers from highways, from planning, Ruth from a sustainability point of view, and we've got WRS officers supporting that process as well. So that group is tasked with developing a draft action plan. And that will require both the City Council and the county council to come up with a list of measures that we feel can reduce air quality to beneath those air quality limits. In terms of process and the timeline, what we're seeking to do is to bring a draft action plan to both licensing committee and to this committee in the summer of next year. But currently, what we're doing is that we've got a large list of potential measures, and we're trying to assess those against a variety of criteria to see which ones will end up in the final cut, for want of a better term.
From officer level, obviously it seems to be working quite well. You're working very well with them. Who is it, from a political point of view, is there a political leadership as well on the county council leading this as well? Who's responsible for that?
I'm not aware of which politician is responsible for it. What I can tell you is the Director of Public Health is hugely supportive of this piece of work as well. So all the signals at the moment, certainly at senior officer level, are very, very positive. But again, given the significance of the subject, you would think this would be a leadership issue, a broader leadership issue for the County Council.
Okay. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Chair. This is something that's concerned me for a long time. Sometimes I walk along the Tithing and I can feel the air pollution, especially on cold days. I think it's important that we note that the death of Ella Roberta, Adudu, Kissy, Deborah died due to air pollution, and she was the first one to have done so. And this could be a problem that more and more residents face. I think we need to be incredibly serious about this. I think this is a public health crisis. Thank you.
So that child, it was on the first time it was on a death certificate, wasn't it? Recognised to be the cause of death. Yeah, so sad. Got any other questions or comments, please? No. So I think this is a great report, and I really welcome us working with the County Council. I think hopefully we'll make some really good progress. We are noting the contents of the report, in particular approval obtained from the Department of Environment for our action plan for December 2024, so we've got more time, and a further report will be presented to the committee next summer in June, seeking approval to consult on a draft city air quality action plan for a 3-month period, subject to feedback from DEFRA. Okay, can I see hands for, if you're happy to note, report? Lovely. Thank you. Is that it? Have we got to the end? Right. Thank you very much, everybody. I don't know how much of that was live streamed, but obviously the minutes will be very important. Thank you, Margaret. And sorry to everybody who's trying to watch.